not everybody is happy with all the other developments. When you look to wind energy, that also has some effects in terms of NIMBY. Not in my backyard. People want clean energy, but they don't want to have a wind turbine in their backyards or on the horizon when they go to the beach.
A lot of our audience is very curious about what the EU is working on regarding the green topic and the possible connections it might have with China. So our first question is, what is your city, The Hague's, and Netherlands' current and long-term strategy on green energy?
I think we have to start in Paris. Many countries have signed the Paris Agreement that we want to decarbonize the world as soon as possible. And the Netherlands is complying with this as well, obviously. So for the Netherlands, this means that we want to reduce our carbon with 90% in 2050 compared to 1990, and 50% in 2030 compared to 1990 as well. So that's the National Climate Agreement for the Netherlands. So that's something that we are working towards. Coming down to the city of The Hague, first of all, there is the industry in The Hague, all the companies that are contributing to the energy transition. The other point is the city itself. How will the city develop its own energy consumption? When you look at the industry, The Hague has always been a city of oil and gas companies. It used to be the headquarters of the global headquarters of Shell. Actually, they still have a big presence. There's companies like Total Energies, Wintershall, Neptune Energy, a lot of oil and gas companies in the past. But these companies right now invest a lot in the renewable energy as well. So what we see is that all these big companies are going through a transformation, and the city of The Hague, of course, tries to at least help companies promote and work on these industries.
They're saying that limiting each country's carbon emission is actually a damage to human rights in less developed regions, because developing countries cannot pay perfectly, which may potentially limit their chance of development. So what's your view on this?
Well, the way how I see it, every country is going through its own energy transition, and I think the majority of the countries committed to the Paris Agreement. But of course, every country is in its own stage. The Netherlands, well, we're not far ahead in producing renewable energy, but right now we're going to hydrogen and clean electricity. But if you look to Germany, we're using gas for our homes. In Germany, they use gasoline. And for them, it would be a big step to go to gas or any other resource to heat their homes. So even within Europe, there's differences between the countries in the stages where they are. When you look to the developing countries, obviously, for them it's harder. They still have to go through a development that Europe has gone through over decades, centuries already. So in my opinion, you can't expect them do the whole same development in some decades. Of course, that's very hard to do. But on the other hand, the advantage they have is that they can learn from the technologies that have been implemented in the West already and in the developed countries, which means all the technologies that have been developed in Europe, but also in China, can be used in more developing countries, so they can leapfrog in their development. So that means they have to take less steps to get at the same place where we're trying to head towards. But I also believe that the developing countries should help them with it. Some countries are just less privileged and have to be helped. So it's a global issue. You can't see the energy transition as something of a country or a city. It's something we will all have to deal with. We need to help each other with that.
So recently, I've heard from the news that there's been protests from Holland farmers. So do you know what the cause of this is, and how has it been dealt with?
Well, that's quite a complicated topic. I'm not 100 specialist in this topic, but what it mostly comes down to is that this is an issue about nitrogen, especially with the agricultural sector, especially with keeping cows and pigs. That causes a lot of exhaust of nitrogen, and the nitrogen has influence on the biodiversity of natural reserves actually. So that means that several plants will get a little bit more prevalent and some other plants will disappear. This is not a new problem. This problem has been here for several decades. But to be honest, it hasn't been resolved by the government or the industry. Now the government realizes it's a big issue because we also have to comply with the European regulation. And they come with some very strict policies that will actually make it impossible for some of the farmers to continue their work. But maybe there's different solutions than just seizing people to do their work as a farmer, and maybe more work on the biological farming, etc. So it's a complicated topic, and this will be a discussion for the coming weeks.
I heard that you mentioned about natural gas. So our next question is, as Europe is striving to turn to renewable energies, some countries have become more dependent on natural gas. So is the war in Ukraine speeding Europe's shift to renewable energies? And how has it affected Holland in particular?
The Ukraine war absolutely had a big influence on this because a lot of countries rely on natural gas from Russia. So for the Netherlands, it has some mostly impact in terms of gas prices because it's more or less a supply and demand issue. With a lower supply, the prices just go up. But it's also an issue about energy security. So what you see is that a lot of countries right now are rethinking their strategies because they don't want to rely on other countries' energy resources anymore. They want to produce more themselves. You see the whole field of natural gas is waking up, shifting, going through some stormy weather, to say so. But the topic of energy security is high on everybody's agenda, and it will be for quite a while. But I don't think the consumption will go down very much in the near future. Natural gas is still a conventional source of energy, but if you listen to all the specialists in the industry, it is the transition and energy. It's much cleaner than gasoline. It's much cleaner than coal. Those are very polluting industries. So in the meantime, until we have everything fully electrified or have a hydrogen economy, natural gas is going to be very important. For some countries, a step toward natural gas is actually decarbonizing. So if you go from coal to natural gas, it's a step forward. But in the end, it's not a long-term solution, but probably a solution for the coming decades.
Where do you see China cooperating with EU to tackle the issue of climate change and environmental protection? And how can we fully utilize the strengths from two parties to achieve this?
Well, to be honest, I think China and Europe are already collaborating in some ways. When we're talking about offshore wind and hydrogen, I think Europe is a little bit ahead. But if I look to the utilities and the electrification, I believe China is way ahead. If you look to the PV industry, a lot of the solar panels equipment, we just talk about Huawei, they're very much ahead in this market. I did an internship in China in 2008. And in Shanghai, all the scooters were already electric. And this is a development you only see now in Europe. And all the electric scooters that are reaching the market here now, and a lot of the electrical vehicles as well, are Chinese. So the way I see it when it comes to system integration, larger energy production projects, I think Europe is a little bit ahead. But to electrification, utilities, China is in some ways ahead as well. So if we just use each other's technologies, learn from each other, we can definitely move this transition forward.
We know that nuclear plants have invited criticisms in Europe. So we were wondering, how is nuclear power viewed in Holland?
It's being reviewed, especially after the Fukushima incident. Nuclear power was off the agenda in every country in Europe. Germany totally got rid of it. But again, because of the energy security, countries want to produce their own clean energy. Nuclear is back on the agenda. So in the Netherlands as well, they're researching the feasibility of building new plants or upgrading the existing plants that we have in Barcelona. It could add value, but it's still expensive. It takes a long time before you commission a factory. It takes 10 to 15 years, I believe. But it could be a solution. I think it lost a lot of its negative image right now, because people see that that clean energy needs to happen, and not everybody is happy with all the other developments. When you look to wind energy, that also has some effects in terms of NIMBY. Not in my backyard. People want clean energy, but they don't want to have a wind turbine in their backyard or on the horizon when they go to the beach. And the same may apply when you have geothermal wells to heat your homes. Somebody's going to drill close to your home. People might get afraid of it, which is not necessarily true, but the perception is there. So people will have an opinion about it. So that's why the topic is being revisited. And in the coming years, we will learn whether or not we will build some new nuclear power plants.